Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. I'm trying to solve a little technical difficulty right now, get our locals connected, which reminded me that I wanted to tell you guys about our locals community. If you're not part of that, it's over at kyleseraphin.com. That's how you get there. It's like the cheat code to get over to locals. I think it's running now. Fun little community of folks, about 1,000 of the regular listeners to the program where we mix it up. We share some things. There's free membership and there's a paid membership if you guys want to be able to support the program financially. And what I realized is that the reason why I actually kind of dug into the podcast format in the first place was that I used to leave these rants from my buddies. This is a totally unrelated thing, but every morning I would go and I would drive into work like many of you. I would do the commute in and something would occur to me. It was news that I'd been listening to the day before. It was social media stuff that I was scrolling, even though I wasn't on social media. I used to troll it and have like kind of a lurker account. I had a bunch of different people bookmarked. So I would go and read what they wrote. Andy No was one of those people. So I could see what was going on in 2020 out in Portland and out in some of the other sort of Antifa infested areas. And I would go on these audio rants for my buddies. And they were like, you should just record that and make that your podcast for the day because it would get them riled up. It's a little bit of humor. It's a little bit of rage. It's a little bit of news, a little bit of all that kind of stuff. So I used to do all that kind of thing. And I'm going to try to start offering some of those over on locals as well, because they're just sort of my unadulterated thoughts. Sometimes it's about how much I hate fire ants, which is what we talked about today. Sometimes it's about fitness and things like that and what's going on, why it sucks getting older, or why I have a shoulder impingement on my right side now that pinches when I want to go do push-ups, but I can lift heavy weights. I don't understand. So anyway, all of that stuff is out there. If you guys want to join us over on locals, we appreciate that. And for those of you who have, I very much appreciate. I've seen we've picked up a couple new members in the last couple days. So very cool that you guys are over there and very appreciated. Today, we're going to talk about the Adam Schiff situation. And I'm going to offer you guys some insight that may not be readily available to you. There's a concerted narrative push that's going on the right now. And usually we talk about the folks that are on the left and sort of the lies that are being told. And the danger, I think, is seeing something pushed out from the political right that is trying to keep you buoyed in enthusiasm. It's selling a hopium or a copium or take your pick about it. And I'm not crazy about that. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what is your purpose? So let me be really clear about my purpose. My purpose is kind of like methadone. Or giving you some sort of a step-down treatment from the inevitable withdrawals that will come from hoping that someone is going to be prosecuted for treason. If you listen to this program regularly and you heard our episode that we discussed the entirety of why treason will not happen, you're not going to see a treason, in my estimation, you're not going to see a treason case. It won't happen. Because it requires aid and comfort to an enemy, and you have to define the enemy. And the enemy cannot be an American political party, and it cannot be an American intelligence agency that works for the United States government and answers to the president with the authorities of the president. That's not going to happen. So you're not going to see an Adam Schiff or a Brennan or a Comey or any of these guys prosecuted for treason. And all the capital crimes that they are alleging, I don't think they have it. There's a wartime requirement for treason specifically. And the seditious conspiracy thing, I think that got played out in January 6th, and I don't think it stays. I don't think you get a DC jury to go after it. I don't think anybody is going to go there. So we're hearing a lot of this talk. I'm going to give you some more evidence of why I think that's the case, including who the messengers are. And I'm kind of very, very uncomfortable with the guy that's been the face of it right now. They've been bumping Steve Friend from commentary at the mainstream media networks. Don't have the clean-cut FBI guy who shoots it straight. Let's get the fat boomer with a lisp. So we're going to talk about that. And of course, I'm talking about John Solomon, who I think is a liar and a snake, and he's Kash Patel's buddy. That's why he's doing this. And there's an interesting parallel because right now they're talking about friends of James Comey. So all of this stuff, if it's not familiar, that's what we're going to talk about today. You're going to get plenty of information and lots of fun stuff to learn about. If you are generally sort of a dystopian outlook type person, the way that I am, whether it's because it's extra hot right now or whether it's because you just don't think that things are going to go our way because that's the nature of the world, I'll have you go ahead and check out my friends over at My Patriot Supply. The website is mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle. That will get you there. And you have a deal right now where you can pick up 4 free weeks of emergency food with your purchase of a 3-month emergency food kit, which is the same one that I have. It is the summer. That's usually when I'm most pessimistic. For those of you that don't like, that have like seasonal affect disorder, mine is backwards. I hate the heat. And with the heat, we also get these weird things where high humidity results in flash flood warnings and 4-year highs in that. We've seen towns underwater. We've seen roads washed out. We've seen the bridge behind my house go underwater. And whenever you see these crisis scenes, whenever they happen either near you or you see them from afar, what you notice is that there's crowds standing in line, waiting for bottled water and waiting for food and for someone to show up and to save them. What if nobody shows up at all? Can you save yourself? You are your own first responder, and reliability on your own abilities and your own things and your own preparation, which is to say prepare and not waiting for someone else to repair your life, is a better plan. You can at least control it right now. It's an investment just like any other insurance policy. Go to mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle. Again, mypatriotsupply.com/Kyle, and check out what they've got going on right now. Again, a 4-week food supply for free when you go out there and you purchase the slightly bigger kit, the 90-day food kit, which is the same one that we have here in this house. I 100% believe in this. They also have the best cost per calorie, which is why I like my Patriot Supply. They're vertically integrated on a lot of their product lines. They have their own quality control. These are people that you guys should check into. And of course, the stuff lasts for 25 years as long as you store it in outside of direct sunlight. So you can keep it for a long time, like any good insurance policy. You don't have to just break it out right now. All right, let's get into today's program. Hopefully you're not going to be needing emergency food for that, but we might as well get our heads right and prepare. Here we go. So I need you guys to kind of tell me too, those of you who listen on Spotify, you may have seen yesterday that I pushed out the podcast on Spotify. It showed up as published on my end, but then didn't go anywhere. So nobody on Apple or iHeartRadio or any of these other places were actually able to get the podcast. And I was notified sometime late in the afternoon that even though it was published, it didn't go anywhere. I saw we had 0 downloads. So if you missed yesterday's show because you're normally an audio listener or you watch on the video on Spotify, that's what happened. I did push it back out. You should find it now, but kind of frustrating and not ideal. I also want to know if you guys are doing okay with the canned ads with the warning so that it doesn't just pop in on you. I know that they're canned ads. It actually does replace one of our sponsors. So it is kind of a valuable upgrade for this show. One of the reasons that we don't have one of the sponsors is because the economic stuff that we're going to be talking about, which is to say that the tariffs, which are out there in the world, and they are changing the game for a lot of businesses. Maybe they bring in a ton of revenue for the Trump administration and the U.S. government. It's looking like 1% of GDP is actually getting harvested in tariffs. But we lost one of our sponsors because of it, because their costs have increased on the back end, so they're unable to do advertising. So that is what it is. I'm willing to eat some costs. Like, I understand we got to tighten our belts and fix things as a country. It'd be nice if they tighten the money supply as well. That's not happening. So we're still printing off money at a crazy rate, and our interest rates are still pretty high for at least this period of time. Nothing like what my parents dealt with in the 14% range. Then again, houses weren't crazy as expensive right now because we weren't competing with big investment companies. Anyway, so the world's a joke. What about this one product? What was it? Promise. That's the word I'm looking for. Promise. What about the promise that the Ukraine-Russia war would end day one? Do you remember Donald Trump saying that? I do. I remember that. I remember him being full of crap about that too. Look, at the end of the day, I don't hold Donald Trump accountable for the things that I know he's saying that are not true. You know, like we're going to fix this day one. But it's not a great track record to go out and campaign on things that you know you can't do. And any reasonable person would realize that you're not going to fix the Ukraine-Russia situation day one, particularly not when you're out there endorsing Lindsey Graham. I'm going to say it one more time because that's very frustrating to me. That scumbag Lindsey Graham gets a phone call, right? And then they're going to go primary Thomas Massie, who's talking about the real problems in America. You don't have to like Thomas Massie, but you can't disagree with some of his points. One of them is going to be later on in this program, which is to say Republicans are all the same. They are both like different sort of wing of the same bat. You can't make the argument for a uniparty and then not actually believe there's a uniparty. And they're doing it right now. They're actually thwarting Trump's agenda, which would be just putting his own people in. Let's read this real quickly. This is coming from ABC News. Russian President Vladimir Putin is showing, quote unquote, no signs that he intends to end Moscow's war on Ukraine. I love the way they phrase that. I guess they did aggress. But if you listen to the backstory on it, you could see that there was a problem for a long time brewing in this area. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky, famous for playing the piano with his penis, That's just what he's famous to me for, said Wednesday that preparations for Friday's U.S.-Russia summit in Alaska continue. We must learn from the experience of Ukraine, our partners, to prevent deception by Russia, blah, 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 blah. He said on social media, propaganda. There's no sign that the Russians are preparing to end this war. Our coordinated efforts and joint steps of Ukraine, the United States, Europe, and all countries that want peace can definitely force Russia to make peace as long as the United States is aggressively involved. I heard J.D. Vance say the thing that I want to hear. If Europe wants to continue this, if this is something they want to be part of, then we can do it. We'll sell you the weapons. You guys cough up the cash. Not America's problem. America only. And it's not our problem. It's just not. Most Americans don't care. The ones that do are not interesting to me. Just saying. Can we just get back to a little bit of sanity and reality? I want to give you some wins because it's not all doom and gloom, and it shouldn't be all doom and gloom. That's not a win. This kind of is a win, I think. I think this is good. This is something that most of us who started paying attention in 2020 started looking around and going like, wait a second here. Why are the mainstream media in cahoots with the federal government's public health groups all lying to us? Like, what the hell's going on here? My friends at Catholic Vote are actually pushing this out. Yes, they're a little bit pro-Trump. Yes, they do have the founder of Catholic Vote now in the Trump administration. He was just confirmed as the ambassador to the Holy See, so congratulations to Brian Burke. But I think they have some pretty decent, fair news. I punched through a lot of their different stuff, and while I don't think all of the stories are most interesting to me, this one is. RFK Jr. repealing federal health rules that allow incentives, financial incentives specifically, to healthcare providers who provide or deliver prescripted treatments. So this is a dangerous problem. When you start incentivizing a behavior, then you are looking to get that behavior done. And if that includes things like making sure that everybody is 100% vaccinated or making sure that everybody is taking experimental vaccines, which I think is the biggest problem, yeah, we're going to have some questions. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on this Friday announced the repeal of federal regulations he said led to corrupt medical judgment. Again, letting money get in between the best judgment of the provider and the patient, allowing specific patients treatments that are financially incentivized. In a video message he posted to social media, Kennedy asked Americans, should doctors make decisions based on what's best for their patients, which is what we expect them to do. This is why we actually don't trust doctors, especially the Seraphin household doesn't. Maybe you are in the same boat. Based on what makes them the most money. Should it be based on what's good for you, the person, or for them and their pocketbook? I know there are many scrupulous and reputable and decent people that are doctors. One of my best friends is a doctor. And I think that he's fair and honest, and even if we don't agree on things or what the data may show, he's very educated. This is his profession. It's not mine. And I know he's a good person. How many of us have that relationship with our physicians? How many of us thought we had that relationship with our physicians and then found out some really weird stuff? I like to give the example of going into our pediatrician's office before we moved to New Mexico. So at the time, I'm an FBI employee. I'm living in Virginia. We used to go to Inova Fairfax, which was the large level 1 trauma center where the babies were born. My first 3 kids were all born there. We had this like really great pediatrician office. We had this great doctor. She's a cool lady. Her brother-in-law was like an ICE agent or a DHS agent. And so she kind of understood like what I was all about. She didn't ask dumb questions about guns in the house. And, like she kind of got it, like we thought. And then we go in after my son was born, and she's wearing a mask, which was a requirement. And we took a last picture, and she was like, it must be really weird for your kids to like see another person. And my wife and I are looking at each other like, what is she talking about? And she was like, a whole year where they haven't even seen like anybody outside of their family. And now they're here in this doctor's office. And we're like, oh, are you effing crazy, lady? Like my kids played with all the kids on the block. All the neighbors hung out and we went and talked like normal. We didn't shut down our family or our social structure simply because the government told us to. What kind of crazy world do you live in? And I realized right then, I'm like, oh my God, this lady is probably one of the double maskers. She's one of the people that thinks you need to go the proper route down the aisle. That's the danger of getting people structured into this, this indoctrination of education. We're going to talk about people who are dealing with college education and the problems that they are facing, which is that, look, you've been trained to think a certain way. You've also been told that the bargain is you enter into debt, you go get that college degree, you go get that piece of paper that says you're an MD, you go take the USMLEs or whatever, and you get certified as a doctor, and then you're going to be the authority and you're going to be able to make money. And now we're realizing it's like, well, AI can answer a lot of the same questions. It just goes through the same literature and it does it better than you, and it's more interested. So the only thing that a physician would be able to offer is that they know you, they know more of your history than you might even know, that they trust you, that they have this personal relationship with you, and they are looking out for your well-being. What if they're not? What if they're not at all? Hospitals, this is RFK Jr. saying it again. Hospitals were paid to report staff vaccination rates. Those numbers were fed into a national healthcare safety network, then published by the CDC in their website to shame hospitals that refused to become an enforcer of federal vaccine mandates. Many of you were victims of this as well. This happened in the medical sphere, this happened in the private sector, and then it happened in the public, where we were talking about devaluing military readiness and devaluing the capabilities of our federal service. We just got word from the folks at Feds for Medical Freedom, which was a group I affiliated with very early on in my COVID vaccine fight, that they just got their settlement. So now the Trump administration is going to delete these databases that say this. RFK Jr. said, today I'm proud to announce, this is obviously Friday last week, I'm proud to announce that we've eliminated the policy by repealing a dangerous Biden-era provision that the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services inpatient payment rule, essentially saying, once again, incentivizing that they do certain activities that the government wanted. That's good. That's a win. That's what I voted for in many ways. I wanted like less government in my life. That's the answer. Don't stick your nose in and incentivize people to do things that are outside the value of what I'm going to go do with them. Please, federal government, just keep yourself, what do they always say to the little kids? Mind your business. Just mind your business. That's not it. And it scares me that this is all like, in the minority of things that we're hearing. And maybe that's just because the dumb things that I'm hearing are louder. I can't rule it out. I can't rule out that the things that I focus on are like that. This is the dumb things that I'm focusing on. Let me start with a CBS version of it. Let's hear an effeminate, CBS news guy talking about the problem that we dealt with yesterday. That's the federalizing of the DC Metro PD and going and trying to enforce DC by the federal government. Again, the worst tool. I'm going to very clearly articulate the point that I had from yesterday in a very short summation. If you want to hear long form, by all means, listen to yesterday. Today, the sum up is DC, the District of Columbia, is meant to be the seat of government. And it is my position, based on living and working in DC for 5 years, being in the worst parts of DC and working within the federal government in Washington, DC, that there should not be a voting populace and there should not be home rule of Washington, D.C. And you certainly, sure as hell, should not have the National Guard, the FBI, or some part of DOJ come in and run the policing of individual citizens. That's a terrible plan. It's my belief you should cede the territory back to Maryland, wherever people live. And there are some cutouts, there are some corridors that are exclusively government, and you can treat them like you would any other military installation or federal building that you might have. That's my thoughts. You can still have your FBI police do security there. You can have the Capitol Police do security on the Capitol grounds. You can have the U.S. Park Police handle the National Mall, which is all of our property and all the museums and so on right there. Those can all stay federal because nobody lives in those. But if there are places where people live, they should be in a state that has representatives. They keep crying for statehood. The Democrats actually put this out on social media the other day. Oh, DC statehood, make it happen. No, how about we give you a vote by giving you back to a place where you belong, which is Maryland. That's where you belong. That's the kind of crime-ridden stupidity and policies. And there's nice parts of Maryland. You can go into Montgomery County, or you can go into PG County, and you can get to the garbage parts of Maryland. You can go hang out with the Chinese spies, right, on the north side. Or you can go to the south side of D.C. and go deal with horrible areas that you don't want to be in. Make it all Maryland. Give them an opportunity to vote. And then take all of that federal enforcement and put it into a state where it belongs. You need to have more distance between your federal government. The answer is the opposite. And for their own benefit, by the way. All right. Here's a soft-handed, soft-faced, I assume this guy uses lots of moisturizer. I'm sure that he smells like lavender if he walks into the room with you. This is Scott McFarland talking about the real problem here, and they're going to say it in such a lovely voice. All of this goes to a theme of propaganda that I'm going to be playing, something I could not help but think of Starship Troopers, so I'm going to plant that in your brain early.
A lot going on here. Good morning. Hey, Tony, good morning. The police department in this community of nearly 700,000 people now responds to the president and the Trump administration. The president has claimed there's a crime emergency unfurling here, but the mayor says this is unnecessary and that crime has been plummeting.
A major American community's police department is now under President Trump's control.
This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back.
About 800 National Guard troops have been called up and are expected to be deployed by the president later this week to help police fight street crime.
We're not going to lose our cities over this, and this will go further. We're starting very strongly with D.C., and we're going to clean it up real quick.
The president defended his decision by painting an ominous picture of neighborhoods in the nation's capital.
Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged-out maniacs and homeless people.
D.C.'s mayor countered with new crime data showing violent crime has dropped 26% from this time last year, with homicides and robberies down too. But she acknowledged the president is within his rights to make these moves since D.C. is not a state.
While this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised.
White House and congressional sources told CBS News the president's order is expected to remain in place for 30 days. Nearly 500 federal agents, including from the FBI and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, have already been deployed, which former Homeland Security official Tom Warwick says is risky.
Taking FBI agents off of organized crime cases, terrorism, and other kinds of cases to do street patrols, that's not the best use of a highly trained FBI agent.
I would love to know more about these highly trained FBI agents. I went to Quantico. I was not highly trained coming out of there. It turns out that what I knew about criminal investigations before I went in, that's exactly what I knew about when I got out. Actually, there's all kinds of problems in the FBI if you wanted to just talk about the investigative end. We could spend endless amounts of time critiquing how ridiculous that agency is and the myth of competency that exists. There's some highly capable investigators out there. And they're probably less than 20%, maybe even smaller than that, if we're totally being honest. There's a lot of people that want to be there because the job sounds cool. Like, it sounds cool. It sounds cool to investigate things and tell people you're a federal agent. But, like, are they really highly trained? No, they're not. Most of the training gets done on the job, and so it takes a long time to actually get there. And they don't actually teach people that much. There's this horrible culture. The FBI might have the worst knowledge transfer system that exists. There's no formal system of being like an FTO, right? The field training officer. We have a training agent that's assigned to you, maybe, but you just kind of like go out there and wing it. My training agent didn't even speak English as a first language or a second language, as far as I could tell. He barely spoke English, period. He was hilarious. He was like super fit. He was tactical. He was on the SWAT team. I don't know what he investigated, and I don't know anything that I learned from him about investigations. I don't think I learned a single thing from him in 2 years. Lou's a good dude. I'm not mad at him either. Just didn't ever, I don't think he did any investigations, as far as I could tell. He just sat at his desk, and his special powers that he spoke Chinese, which is, I guess, useful. I'm going to read this little article here. Again, this is from CBS, so let's do this real quickly. The president announced that there was a deployment of 800 members of the National Guard. They really like that number for some reason, to push a crackdown on crime in the nation's capital. The president's also temporarily taking control of the D.C. Metro Police Department, which I told you I think is one of the most corrupt police departments in America. Hundreds of additional federal law enforcement officers have joined the efforts. I think it's dumb, but not for the reasons that you're taking away highly trained people. I think that they are not the right tool for that job. I don't think, not only are they not actually trained to go solve local crime problems, they're also probably just not trained in general. You notice they always show like a female agent standing in the field who looks frail and weak, and you know exactly how great she's going to do because she's never actually been a cop. Like, she was a computer programmer. Maybe she was an attorney. Maybe she was like she's a white collar investigator and she has a CPA or something. Although there are a lot of the men that I meant to that. It doesn't make a lot of sense to see this. Again, wrong tool. And as you guys let me know in the comments, yeah, in a pinch, screwdriver makes an okay hammer, and a pair of linesman pliers can do it. But I've done that too. It's just not as good as a real hammer. That's why you don't try to plan for that. That's a contingency only. Trump said, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law and order. I'm going to establish law and order and public safety in Washington, D.C. They're allowed to do their jobs. By the way, did you notice he said the roving bands of like wild youths? The wild youths, let's be real specific about who the wild youths are. They're a bunch of black kids that are fatherless, that are running around in Washington, D.C., and they're doing crime, and they know they're going to get away with it. They're going to get released because there's no juvenile detention that's going to hold on to them. You know? That's what it is. It's 13, 14, 15-year-old black kids that have no value for life, that have no value for other people's property, that have no male role models, apparently. Even the freaking mayor of D.C. is this lady. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just saying. It's not the right answer. Here is the way that News Nation, remember, News Nation is my favorite form of propaganda. They are totally fair. They brought on Chris Cuomo, who's like a total arbiter of the truth, formerly of CNN. I think they just exist for controversy. I think a lot of this stuff is based on controversy, and this is why the Starship Troopers bit is in my noggin right now. Tell me you don't watch Mehdi Hasan, who I think is one of the most limp-wristed, effeminate turds and a terrorist sympathizer. Why would you bring him on your news network? Like, he got kicked off of a mediocre, and he lost his show from a mediocre third-rate left-wing source. Why would you bring him back on there other than to just do controversy and me to play the clip? I mean, it is funny. But again, I immediately go to Starship Troopers, and this feels like two people having a structured, ridiculous argument. Here's the way that not CBS covered this. Very different sort of way of covering the same story.
You think it's because Trump cares about crime in D.C., really? Because I remember Donald Trump on January the 6th, 2021, not giving a crap about crime in D.C.
Now for January 6th. Okay,
sorry,
Mehdi, no, Mehdi, come on.
Let me finish my point. This is a short segment.
I know you said that. 150 police officers got hurt.
Hold on. You gave Bill O'Reilly a lot of time. Let me give an answer. I'm here for much shorter time. Let me speak. On January 6, 2021, you may want to move on for it. We all watched police officers in D.C. being attacked by a Trump-supporting mob, 150 injured, 600 people convicted.
Mehdi, you're going to sit here. We know the statistics of January 6th. Mehdi, you're going to sit here. Mehdi, you're going to sit here. Mehdi, you're going to sit here and say...
Young people from all over the globe are joining up to fight for the future.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part, too.
Officials admit they underestimated the Arachnids' defensive capability. Accepting responsibility for Klendathu, Sky Marshal Deans resigns. His successor, Sky Marshal Tahat Maru, outlines her new strategy.
To fight the bug, we must understand the bug. We can ill afford another Klendathu.
Would you like to know more? Federal scientists struggle to explain the intelligent military actions of the Arachnids.
When a colony reaches a certain size, 300 generations or something, it gets smarter.
Insects with intelligence? Have you ever met one? I can't believe I am hearing this nonsense.
You just
this
wait
is the most
a
ridiculous
moment.
conversation I have ever had.
There is some kind of bug that we haven't seen yet. A leadership caste, a hive brain.
Brain bugs? Frankly, I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
Isn't that the same thing? A fake outrage. I'm going to wear a bow tie. Remember Tucker Carlson wearing a bow tie? This is really all theater, isn't it? I mean, it all comes down to that. This is scripted pro wrestling. Again, do you think people go behind the scenes afterwards and they're like, are really actually mad at each other? Because I don't. I think you're just playing a role. I think you're lying to me, and I don't like it. Of all the things that made sense to me was CNN making like a really reasonable point. And I'm going to play it for you right now, even though they have cartoons that are there too. There's a guy wearing a black cowboy hat. I can't remember what that guy's name is, but like he shows up all the time. Please don't wear a cowboy hat indoors on CNN. You look freaking ridiculous. This is Essie Cupp. She's the podcast host of Off the Cup. I know I've seen her on Fox sometimes. She's making a pretty salient point, which is that sometimes, although facts don't care about your feelings are the reason that you do the things that you do. Your perception is the way that you interpret reality, even if it's wrong, and then you act as though it is true. Like DC might have numbers that say that the crime rate is down, but I saw the other day, and so did you, a freaking FBI agent, female, by the way, was driving a car and got carjacked by gang members who were teenagers in Washington, D.C. When you have federal agents who are armed, doing things on the job, getting government cars stolen in D.C., like, you got a problem. It doesn't happen where you live, most of you, probably, unless you live somewhere horrible, and I'm sorry for that. Again, when CNN is rational, this is still theatrical, but I don't think she's wrong. This is the most sane argument that I've heard about the DC nonsense.
Yeah, I think a few things can be true. One is that I think he's using this issue to distract for some other things. That doesn't mean it's a bad political strategy. I think it's a very good one. And the numbers can be what they are, but also people don't feel that way. And when it comes to two things, crime and the economy, feelings don't really care about your facts. And I can't tell you how profoundly stupid it is for Democrats to get up with their facts and their figures and their charts and their graphs and say, look, you're safe. Can't you read this chart, idiots? Why are you complaining? I'm showing you right here how safe you are, so shut up and move along. I don't have to tell you how profoundly stupid that is, because voters told you how profoundly stupid that was in 2024 when Democrats said, see these economic numbers? The economy's great. What are you complaining about? See these crime numbers? Crime's down. You're safe. See these immigration numbers? Obama deported way more. There's no migrant crisis. I can't tell you enough that politics is perception, and the numbers can be right, but you never tell voters they're wrong about how they feel. Congress.
Okay, the numbers aren't even right. Just saying, because we know that the stats are actually being juked. Let me just break over to talk about my buddies over at Shield Arms. You want to talk about the numbers that are right? This is the number that's correct. ShieldArms.com, promo code KYLE. This is the number that's correct. This right here is a flush fit magazine that will fit into a Glock 43X. That's the same thing I carry every single day. Now, those are designed out of the factory to hold 10. That's the number. But if you want to carry 50% more, like 15 in this little tiny magazine, that flush fits in a tiny little gun that you can hide underneath a t-shirt and board shorts, yeah, then you should go check them out. This is the S15 magazine. They're outstanding. And if you want to do a reload, maybe you want 17. Maybe you want one of these little base plates. They actually make them set up and they'll send them right to you. You don't have to do any construction on them whatsoever. I've also got one that holds 20. It's a +5. That's pretty cool. Check out my buddies over at Shield Arms. They make a great product. They're smart people. They are shooters that are making products for shooters. The stuff you're seeing on the screen, if you are watching, it's my buddy Mike, who owns the gun store down the street from me. And you're watching some of the boys there talk about their soft goods, which are all created by like combat vets and Green Berets who have spent lots of time downrange doing cool stuff or doing dangerous things, and they wanted the right tools. If you want those tools, again, for whether it's a bump in the night or, God forbid, someone decides to try to shut your town down and you want to be part of it and ready, you want to be the armed response for your own neighborhood? Yeah, you should. You should act like no one is coming to save you, because the federal government shouldn't and probably won't. And so there you have it. ShieldArms.com. The promo code is KYLE. She just mentioned something. Miss Cup. Is it Miss Cups or Cup? I think it's Cup. C-U-P-P. Miss Cup mentioned something about economics. Don't tell people something that they are not currently experiencing themselves. ABC is covering that this morning. Sorry, not ABC. NBC. NBC has an article that says young men are struggling in a slowing job market, even if they have college degrees. This is the leading graph that they're showing out right now. And I think it's telling. The perception of these people is reality. These are the young men that would be going out and starting families and theoretically either launching businesses or getting the base level experience. These are the people that you go look for federal agents. With a job, they have a bachelor's degree and they're between 23 and 30. Generally speaking, you have to be, I think, 25 to become a federal agent. They've actually waived that for ICE right now. But what people are seeing is that the bargain that America made is not holding up very well. You enter into debt. You go out there and get some skills. I'm not crazy about all that stuff either. I'm not. I think that we should substitute military experience for a lot of this. We should substitute legitimate law enforcement experience. I was actually reviewing some of the slides that we presented to Kash Patel and said that there should be conditional waivers for bachelor's degrees for people who have significant investigative experience. You can give me a guy who has a high school diploma, joined the police department at 20, became a competent patrol officer in 4 or 5 years of doing that, became let's say a desk sergeant that actually ran a shift of other people that were doing patrol, and then moved into the investigative sphere, somebody that knows how to manage investigations, manage human beings, knows how to manage a crime scene, collect evidence, interview witnesses, deal with the public. You're not going to get that by going to college and becoming an attorney. I had a guy on my squad that all he did was go to lunch. He had the federal government pay for his lunch every flippin' single day. He expensed it because he saw a loop around. You know what his work experience was? Nothing. None. Zero. He got a college degree, then he went and got a law degree at some third-rate university and became a lawyer. That never worked as a lawyer. I don't even think he was admitted to the bar. Read the story here. This 25-year-old says that he's falling behind. At 25, he'd like to be living in his own place, saving money for the future, making enough money to take a date out for dinner. Those seem like pretty modest requirements. Being able to rent your own place and take a date out at 25, that seems feasible. Instead, 2 years after he graduated with a degree in computer science, that's one of the ones that tell you, right, learn to code, from the Illinois Institute of Technology, he's unemployed and living with his parents in the suburbs of Chicago. Despite having applied to more than 900 jobs, from secretarial positions to the role at a prison, I've done that before too. I've put that job request in. He's only gotten a handful of interviews. I just want to be an adult. I need to get locked in. I want to move forward, but I can't. I'm stunted. I'm trying my best, and I guess my best isn't good enough. That is not a good way to have a civilization. This is one of the arguments for women staying home from work, by the way. For all of you that are about to get really triggered by that, let's just go ahead and tell you. The argument is the same one that Elizabeth Warren made before she went crazy about the two-income trap. The two-income trap says a couple of things, but the most important is two people in the same household working for a salary that both individually get contributed into a common fund that supports the cost of the household makes everything cost more. It's an arms race. It's a financial arms race for anybody that wants to have kids. When you have two people that are working, that means that you need to have childcare or private schools, and those increase in costs. You need bigger houses, right? You're going to be able to pay for a bigger house, which means cheaper houses become more expensive and bigger houses get even more expensive. So now luxury houses are even more out there. You're going to drive the rate up. Historically speaking, when you had one wage earner, and I don't care if it's a man or a woman, but at the end of the day, it's usually a man. If you had one wage earner that was out in the world and the second person simply made money for a rainy day, for financial emergencies, or kept a job as sort of a cottage industry in reserve and raised their own children, you actually didn't have this problem. We now have, let's call it 50% more to 75% more people in the workforce than used to be only 30 or 40 years ago. It was not nearly as common. And everything has gotten more expensive. And everybody has college debt. So now men and women can't walk away from it. My wife and I experienced this. I'm not without saying that. My wife went to college. She went and got a master's degree, and we had to pay for it. And it wasn't cheap. She was lucky enough she wasn't burdened with undergraduate costs because her parents were able to afford to pay that. And she went to a state school, which makes it a little bit easier. But at the end of the day, making somebody a debt slave, which is why I did the show last week about it, and then locking them in so both men and women have to work, it has a bunch of bad consequences downstream. One of them is disaffected 25-year-old men who should be at the peak of their working their ass off time, learning all of the skills that either is going to launch them eventually into a private industry where they're going to go and start their own business, or they become top-tier wage earners. At 25, I was selling $20 million worth of Dell computers. Was it my favorite job in the world? No, but I learned an awful lot of things. I sold $20+ million worth of hardware and software and infrastructure technology, and I did business-to-business sales, and I was talking to decision makers and small CEOs of 500 or less employee companies. And that's invaluable. So when I walked in as an FBI agent to go and interview people, I'd talked to people like this before. I dealt with folks that were 20 years my senior and were making all the money and were the ones making the decision. And I'd been in the position of asking them for something. So when I asked them for an interview, it was easy. I would rather have a bunch of salespeople who are used to doing door-to-door or phone-to-phone, dialing for dollars business transactions. They make better investigators than most FBI agents I met. And I think that is actually universally true. One, they're better at recruiting sources because they're better with people. And they actually know how to shut up and listen and ask questions. If you guys watch the way that interviews are done properly, not Sean Hannity style, but actually doing interviews, you ask a question, you don't assume that you know the answer, even if you already do, and you let the person answer it. And then based on what they said, you either ask another question or you reflect it back to them with some information. It's not really rocket science. You can take people that have zero education, but they have good people skills. And that's yet another reason why I would rather have a patrol officer with, a high school diploma and maybe a couple of months worth of academy become an FBI agent, become an ICE agent, become any of these investigative positions. That'd be helpful. It's heart-wrenching to see someone at 25 because I know exactly what that feels like. He's like, I want to be an adult. I want to take on responsibility. This is why Jordan Peterson was so prevalent when he popped up on the scene. And he said, young men, it's really, really simple. What you need to do is lift the heaviest burden that you can find. This is a utterly both religious and just basic conservative values principle. Find the heaviest burden that you can lift, and maybe one that is too heavy for you to lift, and then aspire to it and give the suffering in your life some meaning. Every time that I look around and I'm like, oh man, like I've got stuff I've got to do and I have these responsibilities, I also get to see my children and realize why. So a lot of that burden is taking on other human beings that you're responsible for. Can this guy do that? Can this guy who's sitting here looking at the ability to sit on his student loan debt and not be able to move forward, can he make that happen? And then now you universalize that to an entire civilization, to our entire culture, where we've infantilized young men. It's no wonder that people like Pete Hegseth are saying certain things, like women shouldn't vote. I mean, it all goes back to these old principles. And you don't bite one of them and just go like, well, he thinks women shouldn't vote. It's like, yeah, but that's not the entirety of it. He thinks that men should lead. But that means you need to empower men to actually do that leading. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. You also know that it's like very disordered when you see a household and the woman is the most outgoing and runs the house. Like you look at the man and you're like, oh, what's going on there? Is it quietly that he lets her have the loudest voice in public and then at home he's running it? Because if not, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I just look at him and I just go like, what's going on there? Why is that the case? It feels upside down. It feels like you're letting people who have a high degree of emotion run things. And that's just women. We love you for it, women, but that's how you're built. Let me give you an example. I found this yesterday. This is a lady who barely can even right now. She also looks like she's one of those people that probably actually does has a husband that goes out and earns. And now she just spends her time in the dark on TikTok, wondering if she can even get out of bed because she's worried about what's happening in Washington, D.C. No contact with reality, it seems like. This is hard to watch for me because somebody failed this lady. A lot of somebodies probably, and actually our society in general. That's why the message that Pete Hegseth is actually out there getting attacked for by NBC and MSNBC, it's actually not that unreasonable. There's a whole bunch of sort of downstream consequences of the bad decisions our society's been making. Check this lady out. She's a classic example of like affluent, liberal, white lady mental disorder.
So I'm having a little bit of a mental health day. Didn't sleep last night after hearing the news of what was happening in Washington, D.C. Also, what Pete Hegseth said or posted yesterday on his social media about only men voting. So I couldn't really sleep last night. Was awake most of the night. Didn't fall asleep until like 6 o'clock this morning. And then woke up at 1 p.m. today, which is unheard of. I think that's just my body just not wanting to participate in this, not wanting to be awake for any of this, not wanting to be alive for any of this. And then when I did wake up at 1 p.m., I just felt fucking numb. I felt so numb. And just trying to, just trying to get up and go about my life like everything is okay when everything is clearly not okay.
I mean, everything is not okay. It's never been okay. Or you could just listen to the Lego song. I talked about this with Owen Schroyer the other day. Everything is awesome. It's awesome if you want it to be awesome. Just go out there and look. You can find awesome every day. Whatever you look for is what you're going to find. I guarantee it. I absolutely guarantee that. If you go out looking for good things, if you wake up in the morning and you're like, I can't say what I say. I'll say it over on Locals. I'll record you guys a video of what one of my team sergeants used to say all the time, every morning. It was very, very gross, but it's how we started our day off. It was with a laugh, and here we're going. Well, that lady slept till 1 p.m. Here's the argument. Ready? Here's the argument on why maybe ladies should not be in charge. We actually saw this in November. This is going to be like, I love it because our chat was like, oh, this guy is sexist. Yeah. Welcome to the team. Welcome to the team. I actually love women so much. I don't want them to be burdened with this sort of nonsense concern. When you gave women who voted overwhelmingly for Democrats, when you gave them an opportunity to say what it was that they cared most about, what did they do? They told you the most important thing was abortion. If you got an opportunity to fix the United States by correcting one thing in the Constitution, all of you might have an answer. In my case, it's really simple. It's like, I don't want the federal government to take income taxes, because that goes downstream. It means that they now have to be subservient to the states. I also don't want them to direct elect senators. I want to restore the republic the way that it was before 1913. I'm not crazy about the Federal Reserve, but that's not in the Constitution. Okay, so real simple. There's your move. You give women the opportunity to do this, and they've done this over and over again. They've done it through polling. This is just anecdotal. This is man on the street interviews. They think that the ability to kill their children is most important. And a lot of that goes back to exactly what that poor kid at 25, we shouldn't call him a kid, he's a man, a 25-year-old young man who can't get a job is worried about. He's trying to figure out, how do I support my family? And these women have been told that you got to kill inconvenient children so they can move forward with their careers. Like that somehow is going to benefit America, society, the world, your existence, the creator. How are you going to honor your creator with your job when you have an opportunity to do something that's so much more important, like raise the next generation? I assure you that whatever it costs to raise good citizens is far more valuable than any job you could provide for a company that will immediately forget about you. That was the ongoing joke about people who retired from federal service. They all think that the government will not be able to go on without them. And then they jump off and they realize nobody gave a shit. They immediately forgot about you. It's a carousel that goes around forever. When you jump off, somebody else jumps on the horse. So killing your babies, if that's the most important thing to you, maybe voting's not for you. Maybe that's not a great decision. Here's these ladies.
So if you guys could change the Constitution in one way, how would you change it?
Reverse gov major.
Georgetown University.
I was literally going to say legalize abortion.
Maybe abortion laws, you know?
Rights to abortion, like transgender rights to have surgery without necessarily parental consent. Yes, you have freedom of speech, but that doesn't mean you have right to sit there and scream at someone because they choose to change their gender or they love the same sex, things like that.
So should we add trans rights to the Constitution?
Absolutely.
Definitely adding in like policies that like make healthcare more accessible for like immigrants as well as like people in low-income communities. I just think we need to get the old white fucks out of power, but that's not really a Constitution issue.
So if you guys could change the Constitution.
If you could change the Constitution, we would get rid of the old white people. I actually agree with that one. Just old in general. I don't care if they're white or otherwise. Like if you're over the age of 65, I don't want you representing me. It's not that I don't think you're valuable. It's not that I don't think you don't know things. I think people who are over 65 oftentimes know way more than I do. But what I also know is that they have a different risk-reward proposition. And they no longer are in the part of things where they are looking at way that their actual children that they are raising. It's different being a grandparent. You just don't have the same day-to-day interactions. Any of you who are grandparents, remember, whenever you're around your grandchildren, you go, oh, I forgot about some of this stuff. Like it's actually really hard. Or, oh man, that's a thing that I forgot that we had to do. That's not going to be part of your front of mind decision-making. That's why I think it's truly important for people who are in parental ages of any time, whether they be young or whether they be slightly older. It's like, yeah, you need to know what the next generation is going to feel from your decisions. It guided my principles. It made me do things that I might not have otherwise done. I don't remember thinking very much about how my long-term health was going to affect me when I was in the military because I wasn't married. The only person that I had to worry about was me. That was on purpose, by the way. I wanted to know that I could go into any situation and nobody was going to be relying on me and screwed if I didn't come back out of it. That was my plan. That may be flawed, but that's the way I rolled into it. When I was a federal agent, I had to look and say, what are my decisions going to reflect on to my children? How will I explain to them that if our government is completely tyrannical and doing things that are illegal, immoral, unethical, unconstitutional, what did I do to stop it? What was my role in that? Was it just collecting a paycheck? And that wasn't good enough for me because I had 3 kids. Now I have 4 kids. I have to look at them in the eye. And one day I'm going to have to explain myself and say, this is why we did what we did. And this is why we don't live in New Mexico. And this is why you don't have those friends that you had when you were a kid. Sorry. But here's what I think we were doing. And I'll stand on that every day. That's real simple. It should be really simple. It should also be really simple that we just do that one thing, which is that we tell the truth, right? You're supposed to be the purveyor of things that are accurate. If you're going to tell your kids that they can be another gender, then you are lying to them. That is not a possibility. You can't change biological sex. It's very simple. There's other things you should do too. We kind of used to expect that of people in public, that they would go forward and say things that are true. So that should be not a difficult concept. And yet, as we've talked about many, many times, the left loves to gaslight us. So does the right. So does our quote unquote own team. Here's the White House press secretary. She's going to hone in on things that are not going to happen. And I'm going to tell you why I think that is. Again, today's lead thing was, is Adam Schiff going to be indicted? That's the name of today's episode, right? Because that's the thing I keep seeing. For what? Somebody has to tell me what the actual crime is. I'm going to share with you some stuff. The big story is that John Solomon's going out there saying, well, there were media leaks that James Comey did. If you guys don't know the executive order that governs what the FBI director can and can't do, if you don't know, which I've shared with you on this program, that the idea of leaking to the media is a tool of the FBI director, however he sees fit, he can do it. He doesn't have to tell you why. He doesn't have to tell you that he declassified anything. Kash Patel learned that from guys that I introduced him to. And so now they're doing their own version of media leaks. What you don't see is the attorney general and the FBI director going out holding a joint press conference and saying, these are the indictments for these deep state actors that you guys have been wanting to see locked up for a really long time. And these are the details, the probable cause to believe that they committed a federal crime. And these are the federal crimes. And here are the elements of the crime. And here's the things that they did that we could substantiate that were involved in that crime. No, they're using vague terms from the DNI, who's in charge of intelligence and not in charge of investigations, Director of National Intelligence, Information. And she's sharing things like treasonous. And that may be the way that we use that word, but the word treason in a legal context is very specific, and it's a wartime crime. So who's the enemy that they provided aid and comfort to? The last time we had a successful prosecution was in 1952. And the last time that there was an allegation was in the early war on terror, and that person got drone striked by Obama overseas. So you had a GWAT application, and you had a World War II application of treason. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. That doesn't mean that we're not going to have questions about it.
We continue to see positive economic reports across the board. Today's CPI report revealed that inflation beat market expectations once again, and inflation remains stable. Overall, inflation has run at a 1.9 average annual pace in President Trump's first 6 months in office.
Great. Does that mean it's better? Are we just supposed to go like, oh, okay, remember what I told you, what Ms. Cupp said? You can say it. You can give us the numbers. There's a reason why NBC is telling people that they are upset. There's a reason why there's a flood of young people that are saying that they cannot afford to live in America, that costs are too high. And it's not Donald Trump's fault, but don't gaslight him and tell him that your experience is not good. I actually saw, I was going to put it on the screen, but I neglected to. Carolyn Levitt, so the White House spokesperson, she just said, stop being a panicant. Everything is awesome. You can have that attitude about your individual life, but you can't go out there and say that there are not people that are suffering. That is a very tone-deaf move, and it doesn't play well. So cue the distraction. This is what I try to do. The step-down drug from hopium and copium. I don't want you ODing. I don't want you to have withdrawals. I want you to just have skepticism, because now we're trotting out a whistleblower report from 2017. There's this problem, though. The FBI had it in 2017. That means the Trump administration was in power in 2017. Do I think that he controlled the FBI? No. Do I think that the FBI, generally speaking, investigates things when it's brought to them? Yes. Was this already adjudicated and they were able to see that they didn't have the ability to go forward with anything? Yeah. So outside of a capital crime, which has an extended statute, more than 5 years, statute of limitations, this is all irrelevant. You have to prove to the people that you are actually investigating a crime that has a longer statute of limitations, not some nebulous idea of an ongoing conspiracy. Give me a break. Or espionage. You're going to go the Espionage Act on a sitting congressman right now? This is all silliness, I feel like. I'm more than happy to be wrong about this. Like, it would make me happy to see some people. This is not me like gloating that we're not going to have accountability. It's just me like really concerned that we're not going to have accountability. Watch.
Thanks, Caroline. My question involves Russiagate. A whistleblower alleges that then Congressman Adam Schiff approved leaking classified information to smear President Trump's image during the Russiagate scandal. Does the president plan to investigate Adam Schiff, and what would accountability look like if more information confirms this report?
The president has already said he wants to see Adam Schiff held accountable for the countless lies he told the American people in relation to the Russiagate scandal. I brought Tulsi Gabbard out to this podium to talk to you about all of that, and this administration is taking accountability very seriously. As for this new FBI whistleblower report, I understand Kash Patel last night declassified a 302 FBI document showing that a whistleblower who is a Democrat, a career intelligence officer who worked for Democrats on the House Intel Committee for more than a decade, repeatedly warned the FBI in 2017 that then Rep. Adam Schiff had approved leaking classified information to smear then President Donald Trump over the Russiagate scandal. This is obviously a bombshell whistleblower report. Hopefully more people in this room will cover it as such.
Bombshell! It bombed him! What is the report? That somebody in 2017 went and said something and the FBI released the document saying that he said something? Do you guys know what a 302 is? You tell me something. I'm an FBI agent. I'm investigating fill in the blank. Or you just walk in, by the way. You could just be a walk-in. And you just say, I would like to report the following thing. I type that thing up. So-and-so from so-and-so place, so-and-so date of birth, so-and-so social security number, provided the following information after being advised that they would be in a recorded statement. That's it. That's what a 302 is. It's you said something, I wrote it down. Doesn't mean it's factually true. In the same way that a CHS report, one of those 1023s that we used to talk about, remember? Oh, there's a 1023 and it says this. All these people who don't know what an FBI form is. Bombshell from 2017. Really? That's what you got? And by the way, President Trump wants accountability for Adam Schiff. Look at his face. Like, close your eyes if you're not watching. Just picture Adam Schiff. Bug-eyed, silly long neck, ugly as all get out, bad complexion. Like, he's gross. He's gross looking, sure. So what? That's not criminal. Here's even a worse picture of him. Ooh. Gnarly looking guy. Okay, fine. So he looks like a scumbag. He looks like he would be like one of the bad guys plotting some sort of evil thing in Gotham. So what? Does it matter? Is that even like relevant at all? He wants to be held accountable for his lies. What crime is a lie, by the way? None? Oh, okay, fine. For leaking classified documents? Maybe. You have to prove malicious intent. Maybe you could do that. Maybe you get away with that. I sort of doubt it. But we're being led to believe that this is it. They've got him. This is the same energy as the walls are closing in syndrome that they used to have on Donald Trump, by the way. Same thing. The walls are closing in. They finally got him. Honey, go get your boyfriend. They got Donald Trump. Same crap. Same energy, different team. It's the same WWE nonsense. Here's Sean Hannity, who's my favorite. Nothing better than kind of like a flabby, gray-haired man talking to another flabby, would-be gray-haired man that's thinning with a lisp about bombshells and covering it as such. They are doing exactly what the White House told them to do. You tell me this isn't like choreographed theater.
This is a very long piece that you have here.
Yeah.
It is a worth.
Hold on. It is such a long piece. That's how we know it's gravitas. The gravitas of this piece is long. It's very important. You wrote a long story over on your propaganda outlet.
This is a very long piece that you have here.
Yeah.
It is a worthwhile read. I'll let you sum it up, and then I want your conclusion on what you're finding here, because to me it's very damning.
Well, what you find out is that James Comey decided not to work through the FBI press office when he wanted to change the narrative in Washington, burnish his reputation against attacks from Democrats, and try to sully Donald Trump's reputation. If you remember, Democrats were mad that James Comey let out of the bag just before the election that there might be some new evidence in the Hillary Clinton email scandal. Hillary blamed Comey for throwing the election. She blamed the Russians for throwing the election. She blamed everybody but herself for throwing the election for her. But Comey was trying to rehabilitate that. And so he had an intermediary, a Columbia law professor by the name of Daniel Richman, who the FBI confirmed and interviewed. And Richman said, yes, I used my relationship with a New York Times reporter named Michael Schmidt. He's one of the authors of the Pulitzer Prize winning package that President Trump is now suing over. And my goal was to improve negative stories about James Comey and to set a narrative, i.e. set the Russia collusion narrative.
Got it. Okay. What crime is that? Executive Order 13526, classified national security information. This order prescribes a uniform system for classifying, safeguarding, and declassifying national security information to include information relating to the defense against transnational terrorism. Our democratic principles require that the American people be informed of the activities of their government. Also, our nation's progress depends on the free flow of information, both within the government and to the American people. Nevertheless, throughout our history, the national defense has required that certain information be maintained in confidence in order to protect our citizens, our democratic institutions, our homeland security, and our interactions with foreign nations. Protecting information critical to our nation's security and demonstrating our commitment to open government through accurate and accountable application of blah, 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 blah. I now therefore, Barack Obama. Now therefore I, Barack Obama. Let me say it the right way. By the authority vested in me as the president, in the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered as follows. Information may be originally classified under the terms of this order if all of the following conditions are met. The original classification authority is classifying the information. The information is owned, produced, or under the control of the United States government. The information falls under one or more categories listed in Section 1.4 of this order. The original classification authority determines that unauthorized disclosure of this information could be reasonably expected to result in damage to national security and blah, 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 blah. Who can be a classification authority? This is the serious question. It's not Adam Schiff. The authority to classify information originally, and by the way, that also means declassify, may be exercised only by 1, the president and the vice president. They are listed as number 1. 2, agency heads and officials designated by the president. So that would be the FBI director, just for you guys who are paying at home, if it's FBI information. The United States government officials delegated with the authority pursuant to this paragraph. Officials authorized to classify information at specific levels are also authorized to classify information at lower levels. The person who wrote this, which is Barack Obama, and this could have been fixed, by the way. You could change that. You could remove this with a revocation, but nobody has. Executive Order EO 13526 very clearly states that the FBI director is the person that has the authority to do the thing that John Solomon is freaking out about. And by the way, John Solomon is doing the thing that he is freaking out about, which is being a friendly media narrative spinner on behalf of, no shit, the FBI director. I can't make this stuff up. Here, this is an archived piece. This is actually John Solomon's actual email and his actual phone number. This is Kash Patel's actual email and phone number. This is archived on the White House website. You guys know this? This was written by Donald Trump on June the 19th of 2022. The Honorable Deborah Seidel Wall, the acting archivist of the United States at the National Archives and Records Administration. Dear Ms. Wall, I write to designate 2 individuals. This is 2022, after Trump is out of office. 2 individuals, Kash Patel and John Solomon, as my representatives for access to the presidential records of my administration pursuant to the Presidential Records Act, 44 U.S.C. 2201. Cash App, Pramod Kash Patel can be reached at his Gmail address and a phone number, which is missing 1 digit, but that is his phone number. And John Solomon can be reached at jsolomon@justthenews.com and his phone number in Washington, D.C., and that is his phone number. Both individuals meet the requirements for access to records under 34 CFR 1270.44. Thank you for your attention to this request. Signed, Donald J. Trump. That's who wrote this. You are literally seeing a person who was named to do propaganda and to do research on behalf of Donald Trump, and you can agree with it, and you could really like it, and you could really like Donald Trump in general, but you cannot say that John Solomon is some sort of like a disinterested party that just happens to be this honest reporter that only brings things out. He's just looking for the truth. No, he's freaking friends with Kash Patel. I know John Solomon because I know Kash Patel, and Kash Patel introduced me to him. Here he is on his program, bringing you very, very serious news. I don't know why this guy is a TV personality, by the way. Who is the audience that's really excited about this kind of dumpy looking dude? And by the way, he is full of shit. Having talked to him a bunch, and we were talking earlier about salespeople, John treats you just like a sale. And he treats you just like a source, but like not a great source handler. And it irritated me right away. He just had some value to me when I was sharing some information that I wanted out, but not that much. And when he started lying about stuff, including the we were going to move the Project Veritas story and the fact that Garrett O'Boyle should have been rehired by Kash Patel immediately, that's when I sort of lost it with him. Here he is on his own program. He has a place on Real America's Voice, which is garbage. It's garbage for the most part. Here is Just the News, no noise, Real America's Voice, John Solomon, definitely not a propagandist for the Trump administration and the current FBI director.
We're going to advance the story for you first here on the show tonight before we even put a story up on Just the News. It turns out it wasn't the only suspected leak that the FBI came across. In fact, it identified about a dozen stories in the legacy media that drafted and created the Russia collusion narrative, which we now know to be fully debunked, that it contained national secrets. Information that was classified all the way up to the highest level, the stuff that only presidents and FBI directors get to see. Tonight, we're going to tell you about another person that they had concerns about. He was FBI Director James Comey's media mole. That's what they used to call him inside the FBI. He worked around the FBI press office as a private citizen working as a special government employee. He was a Columbia Law professor named Daniel Richman. And when the FBI finally confronted him and said, hey, what were you doing talking to the media? He admitted his job was to to improve or polish the image of James Comey from some of the negative coverage he was getting, and to set the narrative, to basically shape the narrative on Russia collusion and other stories in Washington. And what
Oh, so wait a minute. He was a special government employee. He was friendly with the current FBI director and was given access to information that the FBI director under 13526 has an ability and authority to give him access to. This is a real bombshell scandal. Like my head is spinning. Hold on. My head looks like this is how I feel in my head. I feel like my eyes are bugging out. Adam Schiff style. This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible spin. It's complete nonsense. And again, it's coming from this guy. Thanks, John Solomon. Why are you like this? Why are you guys all like, why do we want to cheer for this? I don't want to cheer for this. I want better than this. We deserve better propagandists. We deserve better villains. We're getting the fourth tier villains from the old Adam West Batman series, right? The condiment king who shoots mustard and ketchup and slips off the edge of the rail. I was talking about that to Owen Schroyer the other day. Like, we deserve better villains in this country. Our conquerors are weak and they're sloppy. And they're still like out there dominating the brains of like really capable, able-bodied males who should be out there leading this country and are not. So I don't know. And the funny thing is that politics has always been show business for ugly and weak and nerdy people. But like, I thought that would kind of end with the internet era. Like, it's not that hard. Now you could look at these people and you're like, how does Jerry Nadler still have a job? Blows my mind. It really does. It frustrates me at a special level. And let me just throw one last thing out there, which has nothing to do with anything, but it is kind of funny because it got covered in the news the other day. So I'm going to make it part of our program. You guys might as well know. There's an organization out of Las Vegas that's called the Review Journal. I spoke to one of their reporters. His name is Noble Brigham. He's a nice enough guy. And so I had a conversation with him a couple days ago, recorded the conversation, gave him about 26 minutes worth of information. He covered basically one line of what I had to say. But the story was that Spencer Evans, who was removed last week, whose scalp I told you I'm claiming, I will claim some scalps from last week, and I'm going to claim that one. He spoke to his attorney, he being the reporter, and his attorney, Mark Zaid, who anybody who knows anything about Mark Zaid, they know about Mark Zaid. Mark Zaid apparently said that Spencer's job was a role within the Human Resources Department that implemented a COVID vaccine policy, and it was directed by the Justice Department. Some employees were upset about vaccination and mask requirements and their ability to receive accommodations. He said that Spencer Evans did not create the policies, but he did help carry them out. Again, men who don't know how to have discernment are a problem. Disgruntled former agents attacked Evans and others. And this is the best part about it. This is why I'm covering it. He said, quote, this is Mark Zaid. This is Spencer Evans' attorney. They don't have a great deal of public influence. The question is how much influence they have inside the Bureau. Kyle Seraphin, who refers to himself as a recovering FBI agent, said that he made an accommodation request in 2021 arguing COVID-19 policies discriminated against pro-life Christians. Fact check, true. He said Evans denied the request. Fact check, true. I have the documents for all that. Then he said he urged Evans' firing, but feels that the officials mishandle it. Fact check, true. These are all true things. Everything I said is accurate here, so I'm not mad at this guy for writing it. And then I said, quote, I actually think Spencer Evans is going to end up getting his job back, or at least he'll get paid out for a wrongful termination. I do believe that because I think the FBI violated their policy, and I'm consistent, as you guys will know. I think that if you're going to do it, you got to do it in the right way. What I also think is going to be problematic is this text message thread, which was shared with the Suspendables by Kash Patel. You'll notice at the top, I'm quoting Kash in there. Kash said, "Thank you guys for your relentless friendship and mission love. You guys made this possible," this being his nomination to FBI director. If they had just reinstated Garrett O'Boyle, they could have strung me along for a lot longer. I'm as easily snowed as anybody when I want to believe the thing that I want to believe. And I did want to believe Patel was going to do the right thing. The problem is that he screwed over Garrett right away. And you guys who listen to the show know I'm talking about Garrett O'Boyle, who's now been suspended for like 1,052 days without pay. About 20% of his suspension is now underneath Kash Patel's leadership and the Trump administration. They've got to own that. The best part of it is that I shared with a picture of Spencer Evans being fired, and I was asking if he wanted to come on the podcast via LinkedIn, which is really funny. And Kash said, "Yeah, he's fired. I'm a man of my word." I've got another one where I showed him his name, and he said, "Yeah, that guy, he's fucked." Because we were in contact with the FBI director. You still got to do things the right way. And it turns out we actually made recommendations on how you can do that. If you guys want to go see the social media feed, you'll find out what I was recommending to Kash at the time that I did. It's out there on X right now. You know, like move everybody to Huntsville, which they're talking about doing, and Redstone Arsenal, staff up, like they're talking about doing. I gave them a bunch of investigations that they were supposed to go after, some of which they're doing, most of which they've just gone back to what they know, which is Russiagate, which is why we deserve better criminals, we deserve better villains, and we deserve better people running this organization. Like, we deserve better actors that are lying to us. They should do better. It should be easy to do. All right. That's what I got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We left out the canned version of the Spotify. That's because I got late on the ball yesterday, so we're not going to have a canned Spotify ad, and that's going to be it real quick. I will remind you that if you want to support the program, the easiest and the freest way to do it is by subscribing wherever you're listening. You can subscribe on X or Rumble or YouTube. That would mean follow the channel or whatever you want to call it. If you want to financially support us, you can do the same thing. We really appreciate it. It's not particularly expensive. You can go to locals@kyleserafin.com. Paid or free member, I'll take it either way. I love the idea that we could share fun stuff, like we're doing fitness over there. We're going to start doing the push-up group, which means you have to be accountable. You tell me your list of push-ups in the morning. I just think that's something that men should do in general. We should just do things that make ourselves better every day. So I've started getting my high school buddies who are all in their 40s to go and report push-up numbers morning and night. Let's do that. You can also find us at KyleSerafinShow.com. Again, like, share it, subscribe. Leave me a comment if something that I said like really tweaked with you and you're like, oh yeah, I get it. Or if you said something like, hey, I hate it. Stop making fun of boomers. You're a jerk. That's okay too. I don't mind. Leave me a comment. I read almost all of them, and I respond to a bunch of them when I can, especially if it is a unique comment. You will definitely get my attention. Let's end with a palate cleanse, shall we? Something to kind of just remind us. This is the same women that want to do abortion in the Constitution. Maybe they can find Bigfoot, this guy says. This is obviously a joke, ladies. We're just going to have a little bit of fun. This is some sound dadvice.
I think the reason we haven't found Bigfoot is because women have not been looking for him. Think about it. They discovered the gender pay gap and the fact that guns have more rights than their bodies. See, they're experts at finding shit that's not real. The downside is that Bigfoot doesn't have a job, so if they find one, they will get pregnant by it. Flex on your wife with Sound Advice merch.
Yikes. That's the key to the Bigfoot thing. Maybe we can also find Atlantis that way. I hope all of you guys have a great Wednesday. It's going to be a weird day out there. I'm sure of it. And so go out there, get more fit, get more sane, get more skeptical, and share the show. We appreciate all of you. God bless you. Look forward to seeing you again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.